She used to be a politician. Now she's keeping them honest. Danielle Smith on 770 CHQR.
Brought to you by the Popowich Carmeli Advisory Group, CIBC Wood Gundy.
Alrighty, guys, I am going to do my darndest to try to bring to you environmentalists who I think are doing some really important work for the planet. I'm going to try to get this guy on, and I don't know if I'm going to have any success, but holy cow, he has solved the problem of plastics in the river system going into the ocean. His name is Boyan Slat. He's 25 years old, and he developed this company and this ocean cleanup interceptor. He's already got them out on 3 different river systems. He identified the 1,000 rivers that of the 100,000 that were causing the biggest problem. He demonstrates this project, and it's amazing. And you're thinking, why isn't anybody backing this guy so we can get it on the remaining 1,000 rivers? So we're going to see if we can get him on because he is fantastic. I tweeted this out yesterday so you can watch the YouTube video yourself. I said, you want to give a Nobel Peace Prize to any young environmentalist? He is a top contender. So in that vein, I thought you might be interested in this movie that is showing through the Marda Loop Justice Film Festival. It is going to be on Saturday, November 16th, so tomorrow night, 8 o'clock p.m., River Park Church Auditorium. You know this Justice Film Festival, they always have some really interesting topics on it. So this one is a movie called The Need to Grow. And as I was going through looking at 2 of the people who are going to be speakers, Tanner Stewart, Michael Smith, there's also Grant Kelba, who's the moderator. It got me thinking, wow, is food production ever getting high-tech and complicated these days? So they followed 3 characters for 3.5 years, telling different stories about different ways in which they are trying to improve soil quality and improve the quality of the food we eat. So I thought you might be interested in that. And so let's talk to the founder of Stewart Farms. It's a cannabis company based in New Brunswick. He's also, as it happens, executive producer of The Need to Grow. I'm joined by Tanner Stewart. Tanner, thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So tell us the genesis of this project. Where did it begin from? Was it because you were kind of a food entrepreneur that you said, hey, there's other people doing interesting things, I better do this? Or did you become a food entrepreneur after seeing all the interesting things other people were doing?
You know, it was kind of all at the same time. So it was about 6 years ago. My first son, my son was just born, actually. And I got invited down to Whitefish, Montana, by this Michael Smith guy to meet these 2 young directors out of L.A., Rob Herring and Ryan Wyrick. And they basically were looking for an executive producer to help them get this film made. And I went down, and it was my son's first trip out of the country. He was 3 months old at the time, so I packed him up, and we drove down to Montana from Edmonton. And I met Rob and Ryan. They showed us the sizzle reel of the film, and I was just blown away. It was all about environmental entrepreneurs, and they had just started making it. Like, they were maybe like a couple months into the film, and they said to me, Tanner, have you saw the film The Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore? And I said, yeah, I saw that film. And they said, well, this is the opposite of that. They said, this is a film about solutions, and we're going to follow people's lives, activists and entrepreneurs, and show the world people that are really doing things like that young man you just mentioned that's cleaning up rivers, because we think people are tired of problems. And I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years now, and that got me instantly, because, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, you cannot worry about problems. You just have to focus on
no
solutions.
Kidding. So let's talk about, I don't want to get carried away in talking about the content of the film and not knowing what your business is. So tell people what it is that you do. What is your cannabis company all about?
Yeah, so I'm an indoor vertical aquaponics farmer. So we actually combine land-based fish farming, which I believe is really the ultimate future of all seafood production for the world.
Can I just tell you how happy I am to hear you say that? Because fish farming has been so vilified over the years, and yet to me, it right now is the only place where I worry that we have unsustainable practices, because it's sort of just the rule of capture. If you can get there and you got a big enough boat, you can take as much as you want. It seems to me that fish farming makes the most sense. I mean,
you know, what's going on in the oceans is it's an absolute disaster. Out of sight, out of mind, right? You know, every single shrimp you eat has plastic in it, you know, agriculture runoff into the oceans. It's overwhelming. It's honestly overwhelming. And then overfishing. So moving seafood production on land is the ultimate future of seafood production. We got to get out. We got to get out of the oceans, and that's really what Stewart Farms is about. You know, we're farming cannabis with the water from the fish farm. So it's a basically a semi-closed loop system where we're feeding organic fish feed to these fish. We're taking the nutrient-rich living water, you know, good soil. This film's about soil, and it's about living soil. I use living water to farm plants, right? And it doesn't have to be cannabis. It can be tomatoes, lettuce, kale, Swiss chard. I did that here in Alberta for 5 years. Swiss chard, kale, arugula, spinach, with an aquaponics system. We had our fish in the TNT markets around here. We were doing organic tilapia. Yeah, we sold quite a few batches locally here in Alberta.
That's fab. You know what you're making me think of is Deepwater Farms.
Yeah.
Because I own a restaurant and we've used some of their product. And they
amazing.
do also have fish aquaponics.
What do you think
there.
of the taste of the leafy greens? What do you think?
So amazing.
It's
it
amazing,
really is. I just
right?
need to go into this big warehouse and you see just the hydroponic setup, row upon row upon row of beautiful, fresh, green, all you could imagine variety. But they do have fish there, and I hadn't considered that they must use in the same way the nutrient-rich water as part of the feedstock for the plants they're growing.
Exactly. I mean, when you build a land-based fish farm by itself, you just have a waste stream. When you build a plant production hydroponics facility by itself, you have a waste stream. It's water and nutrients going out the doors. So when you combine, which is what nature does, you know, when people say, well, what is aquaponics? I like to say, well, have you ever been to a lake? You know, there's fish in the lake and there's plants that grow on top of the water. I mean, that's what it is. We've been doing aquaponics for thousands of years, right? But you know, that's really the future of all industries. It's not about, I don't like recycle. You know, I think that should be the last option. It needs to be reduce, reuse, right? Eliminate waste streams. And, you know, that's when you're an aquaponics farmer like Paul or like myself, you know, you're in that mindset right away, right? You're like, how can I have no waste streams and just create value?
Okay, so so that's one aspect of it, but as you said, the film is about healthy soils, and
That's
again,
right.
It's another one I do a lot of segments on. There's some ladies who are just starting some great work on this, working with ranchers and farmers to improve the organic matter in the soil, and it has a wonderful benefit. Not only is it better for the soils and food production, but it also captures carbon dioxide as well.
Oh, it's huge, and you know, we have a saying that from this film, or a hashtag. It's hashtag Save the Soil, Save the World. You know, we keep having these conversations about climate change, but nobody can really grasp onto that concept, you know, climate change. We need to talk about what can we actually do, what can we focus on that is a real solution to climate change. And one of the best solutions we have available to us is putting life back in the soil. And to your point, like dead soil is called dirt, and dirt doesn't hold water. It doesn't sequester carbon. Right, and it just blows away in the air. And living soil has millions of microbes in it. You know, you take a handful of soil, you've got more microbes than humans on Earth in a little tiny handful of soil, and it creates water and nutrients, right? And that's the throughput of this film. It's you know, the effect of big ag on soil, and these three entrepreneurs, well, two entrepreneurs and a 7-year-old Girl Scout named Alicia Serratos. And what they're doing to contribute to soil.
Let me pause because we're going to find out a little bit more about those stories. We don't want to give it all away because you still want to go see the movie. It's playing tomorrow night at the River Park Church Auditorium as part of the Marda Loop Justice Film Festival. It's called The Need to Grow, Saturday, November 16th, 8 p.m. We'll tell you more about it with the executive producer, Tanner Stewart. He's founder of Stewart Farms, which, as we've just discussed, is a cannabis company based in New Brunswick, but they use aquaponics in order to get the best bang for the buck. We're going to continue on with this discussion when we return on 770 CHQR.
I'm Fearless Fred, comic book creator, radio personality, and dungeon master extraordinaire. On my podcast, Issue Zero, we'll explore all the things that used to get you beat up in school. From Conan the Barbarian to Wonder Woman, we'll look at the history and future of the fandom universe. So join me as we journey through galaxies far, far away. Issue Zero is available for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can also find us and listen on demand at curiouscast.ca.
All right. I just got to get Tanner to tell you what he told me off the air. So Tanner Stewart is founder of Stewart Farms. It's a cannabis company based in New Brunswick. He's an executive producer on The Need to Grow. I've got somebody saying, hey, I'd like to try some of his weed. Is it available? And it will be available here, but not yet. It's they're working on the new year. And it'll be marketed under Stewart Farms if you want to look at it. But he's got such a great story about how he funded this. Even though it's in New Brunswick, he's got a history here in Alberta. Why don't you tell us the connection there?
I actually left New Brunswick in my when I was 20 because I needed a job, and I came to Landon Fort McMurray. Started out as a pipe fitter, became an entrepreneur. I started a construction company when I was 21, and I'm still in construction here in Alberta. My company Field Max operates at Inisku, and every environmental endeavor that I have done to date, starting with a company called Nutriponics in Edmonton, and Stewart Farms today. Has been funded by, visionary Albertans, and most of whom have made all their money in the energy sector, right? So,
and this is what I love talking to you about, and I mentioned this as well. It seems like in such a polarized world that you've got environmentalists becoming more extreme in their message. The response of many of my listeners has been, fine, let's not do anything. But there's this middle ground where you can say, hey, we've got all this wonderful wealth that we've created through energy. Mm-hmm. Let's fund some things that are really practical to solve real environmental problems.
Well, that is 100% the key. So I have a mantra, and it's no margin, no mission, and we need financing to move these environmental endeavors forward at a rapid rate. And I have a unique situation where I came to Alberta with really nothing, and I was able to build an entire company being a nobody just off of hard work and effort, and that was really appreciated here in this province. And now with Stewart Farms, I've taken millions of dollars of investment that came from this province, from Edmonton and Calgary, and I'm actually investing in Atlantic Canada, right? And I mean, there's a really very close tie between Atlantic Canadians and the energy sector here in Alberta, and it's no different than my commenter. I talked a little bit off air about farmers and that are doing big ag. Well, like the people in the Alberta energy sector, these are great people. These are the people. They care 100% about the environment. They put their money where their mouth is, right? And they take, we have a clean energy sector here as far as I'm concerned, and the people here in Alberta care about the environment as much, if not more, than anybody else in Canada.
I love the message. Let's talk about a couple of the people that you followed in this movie. So first of all, let's talk about the soil companies. Like what are they working on to try to improve soil quality?
So the entrepreneurs in the film.
Yeah.
Okay. So Eric Cutter is one of the three subjects, and he's I call him a renegade urban farmer. He's kind of the Clint Eastwood figure in the film, and he turns parking lots into organic regenerative gardens in California. So he shows up. He's got this technology called Filtrix socks, which is basically these socks that are preloaded with this unbelievable living soil, right? And he just rolls them out over the concrete and plants kale and Swiss chard and all these different vegetables, tomatoes, and he produces this great food.
He doesn't have to pull up the asphalt or
no, he just rolls out the socks over top of a parking lot and then starts planting. And he's getting them in high schools all over America, and he's just an awesome guy, and he's got some real magic in what he's doing. And then we got Michael Smith out of Montana in Whitefish. I mean, it's a short drive from here. Michael be happy to host any Albertan down there anytime. He's hosted lots actually down there, and he's doing a green powerhouse technology, and that's a closed loop system where he's taking wood waste and biomass, and he's burning it off and taking the CO2. He's creating kind of a carbon char product from the biomass, which you can put in soil. It's basically coal, right? And you can put that in soil, and that helps soil hold water, and it's good for the root system. Then he's feeding algae, right? And the algae, he's turning the algae into a beautiful fertilizer amendment. He's just a brilliant guy. And then Alicia Serratos, her journey is to get GMOs out of Girl Scout cookies. And we started following her when she was 7 years old. So she grew up, a good chunk of her life was growing up being filmed on her journey to going up. And she's a Girl Scout. Like, she's in Girl Scouts, So she's fighting from the inside, right? Because she loves the Girl Scouts. It's not because she's against them. She's like, well, I love the Girl Scouts, and we're selling these cookies that are just loaded with GMOs. Why are we doing this? Is this what the Girl Scouts are about? And she goes right to New York, and I don't want to spoil anything, but it's
worth watching.
It's worth watching, yeah. And
what GMOs are in Girl Guide cookies?
Well, it comes from the like the wheat, the wheat products and the flour, basically, right? Because you're using the biggest things that are GMO driven are corn, wheat, and soy type products, right? So flour, essentially.
Was she successful, or do we have to watch the movie to see?
You definitely got to watch the movie to see. And I got to tell you, the CEO of at the time, anyways, of Girl Scouts America, she did us a lot of favors in this film because you always need some villains to make a good story. And I compare her. I don't want to get in too much trouble here, but I compare her to President Snow from To Kill a Mockingjay, and she fits the bill pretty good.
All right, so for people once again who want to have a gander at this, is The Need to Grow, and is playing at the River Park Church Auditorium tomorrow night at 8:00 p.m. Can you maybe comment more broadly about the challenge of getting the dollars to fund these kinds of ventures? It seems like there's endless amount of money, billions of dollars, maybe trillions of dollars, to go into environmental advocacy.
Yeah.
You just think if half of that went into supporting entrepreneurs and these kind of innovative projects, what a difference it would make in the world. What has to happen to see that kind of shift?
I think it's a little bit on both ends. A lot of sustainably driven entrepreneurs can get a bit too lost in purely the sustainability portion of it, and not really be focused on building a strong balance sheet, right? And you lose a lot of investors, right, in the very first meeting when you're like, well, I just want to save the world, and they're like, okay, well, how am I going to get my money back? So I think there's a little bit of that, but on the other side of it, it's on the investor side. There's a big audience a growing audience, exponentially growing audience, that is now shifting to that longer term mindset of investment, right? I think the public markets are a big problem for long term sustainably focused companies, right? Because when you have a 5 and 10 year vision, and that's what these things need to be, or longer, right? Perpetuity. Versus I'm going to put my money in and get it out in 2 to 3 years.
Or you have to constantly every 3 months be issuing your quarterly results and measuring it against them. And we're seeing that with a lot of the cannabis companies right now. People say, "Well, why is there so much disruption in the market?" Well, it might be a 10-year plan that you got to hold on to it for.
Absolutely, and so you need those. So you have to align the vision with the investor, right? And sometimes these sustainable entrepreneurs. Or any entrepreneur in any business ends up taking the wrong money, right? Because you just want to fund your vision, right? And if you're not really focused on aligning the investor's motivation with your company's long-term motivation, that can get you by accident. But I mean, there's a growing audience of sustainably focused investors. I keep hearing, I did this for years, and now I want to take my money and leave a legacy for my kids. And now I want to take my wealth and invest in something long term. And that's a lot easier to say for people who've already kind of made their money and been in and out of things. So you just really got to be in front of the right audience.
That's neat. I've got somebody asking the question about the latest venture, Stewart Farms, why you set it up in New Brunswick instead of here, since you got such strong ties here.
So I mean, that was I'm from New Brunswick originally, and that was a very economically driven decision. New Brunswick has 30% on average lower labor rates. Electricity is 8.9 cents a kilowatt hour with transmission. Worst case, all in, right? It's not as cheap as someplace like Quebec, and the electricity is nuclear and hydroelectric mostly. And I bought a facility, a building, 100,000 square foot warehouse, 40 feet tall on 29 acres. For a very, very reasonable price. So it's kind of a combination of everything.
As you said, you got to look at the economics, and if the economics make sense, that's where people are going to move to.
Yeah, it's economically driven, and this is a federal game, right? So for me, I mean, Alberta's the number one market I'm going to be coming into with our cannabis, and two of my key executives are here in Alberta as well, and I'm I'm here every week. My construction company's still here.
All right. You can invest in both places.
Absolutely. I love, it is a struggle for me, honestly, because I'm a proud Albertan and I'm a proud New Brunswicker, right? And I've been here for 16 years. I just moved back 3 months ago. So I barely even moved back.
Well, thanks so much for the innovation and for sharing your story with us. I sure appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, that's Tanner Stewart, founder of Stewart Farms, which is the cannabis company based in New Brunswick that will be selling into the Alberta market in the new year. We'll tell you more about it when that happens. Let's take a pause. You may have heard about Dean Foods going out of business because it appears milk consumption is declining. Interesting. We're going to talk to Will Verboven about that when we return on 770 CHQR. Thanks for listening to the Danielle Smith Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review for free on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you find your podcasts. And join the conversation. You can reach me on Twitter at @ABDanielleSmith or by email at Danielle@770chqr.com. Talk to you next time.